chat too.
Okay. All right. So are we live or whatever, or can we go, or?
Oh yeah, you can go. We're not being broadcast on cable. There's no tech here, so. But anybody is on the line, so we got a meeting.
All right. Well, why don't we get started, and if a tech shows up, then all the better. We'll save the COVID discussion for a little bit later.
They're televising the Board of Appeals.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, I'm watching it.
Oh, that's nice. Makes sense.
Well, there was no tech. The tech must not have gotten called for this meeting.
Okay, can you all hear Roy now? I've just called the number Glenn suggested.
All right, yep, we hear you.
Okay, thank you. Rich Sabazinski also was on the call-in line. He couldn't hear you. He's calling in the number you gave us. Thank you.
Yes, yep.
All right, well, if we're ready to go, since it's 6:06 p.m., we'll bring the Mashpee Board of Health to order. I would just ask that anyone on the line, please mute your phone if you're able to, just to keep noise to a minimum. If you'd like to talk, obviously unmute your phone and speak up, and we'll give you an opportunity to talk at the appropriate time. So usually we start with new business, so we'll look at the review and approval of the meeting minutes for April 16th, 2020 public session. Ronnie, do you have any comments for the meeting minutes?
I do not.
Okay, I don't. Glenn, do you have any comments?
I've already submitted them, and they've been amended.
Okay.
Is Mallory not here?
Mallory is not here. She is had some obligations for her deployment.
Oh, okay.
So you're on the motions tonight, Ronnie.
Oh, I motion to approve the minutes of, what was it, April 15th?
16, yep.
16th, April 16th, 2020.
Okay, I'll second that motion. All those in favor by roll call?
Veronica Warden, aye.
Brian Baumgartel, aye. Expense warrants, do we have any that we need to come in and sign, Glenn?
Yes, there are two here from last meeting that still need to be signed. Ronnie came in, so I just need basically you, Brian, because Mallory, unless she's available beforehand, she could still do it. But
okay. Could you, after the meeting, just shoot me an email, just to remind me, because I don't have a piece of paper handy to write it down that I need to swing by there.
Yes,
that would be helpful. Okay, so let's just keep moving on then. Review a request for new retail food establishment permit for the Poppy Market, 259 Shore Drive. But if you could give us the background information on this one, please.
okay. The application and fees have been submitted for the Poppy Market at 259 Shore Drive. That Serve Safe and Allergy Awareness are not required because this is going to be a retail permit only. No preparation of food will be performed on site. And the other request is a tobacco permit, which is can be approved because it's at an existing location where there was a previous tobacco permit allowed. So
okay.
I don't have any other comments. We just still need to do an inspection prior to issuance of the permit. And the applicant is on the phone, Mike Morrison, if you have any questions.
Sure. Mike, if you would like to unmute your phone, if there's anything you would like to add to Glenn's comments, and then the board might ask you a few questions.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're just excited to get started. I currently own another business, Rideaway Adventures, in that same complex. So, yeah, very familiar with the area, and I'm excited for the new venture.
Okay, great.
Which one do you own?
Rideaway Adventures. We're the kayak, paddleboard, and bike shop out there. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Ronnie, it looks pretty well in order to me. Glenn already answered the question that I had about the tobacco permit, it being an existing location already. Do you have any other questions, Ronnie?
Let's see. No, I can't think of any. How about you?
I mean, it looks like everything got filled out for the most part this time on the application. I don't see any sections that didn't automatically fill out, like we've had some issues with in the past, so that all looks good. So, yeah.
Okay, a motion to grant a retail food permit for the year 2020 and to the property market, to grant a tobacco sales permit to property market for 2020.
Okay. And could you just actually put the address in there just for the tobacco permit purpose?
I mean, what's the address? I don't have. I can't find the.
It's 259 Shore Drive.
That's right, 259 Shore Drive.
Okay. I will second that motion.
Marketplace.
Okay. I'll second that motion. All those in favor by roll call?
Aye.
Brian Baumgartel, aye. Okay. So I think we're all set.
Mike, you're all set.
All right, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Yep, let us know when you get going, and we'll come and do an inspection.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
All right, moving right along. Review of request for Title V variances for Cape Cod Coffee, 10 Evergreen Circle. Glenn, if you could give us the background for this one, please.
Sure. A variance has been requested to allow or for the reserve area not to be constructed in accordance with the commercial septic system regulation. The owner of property has written a cover letter explaining the conditions of the variance. In other cases, the board has allowed a variance only to existing facilities where a D-night is retroactively installed. This is new construction, and the reserve SAS will be under the pavement. We've found in the past that having the reserve area constructed with the ability to use it when the primary fails is a huge advantage for the owner, just to be able to flip a switch and keep operating without having any impact to the property. There was also another variance that was requested to allow the reserve area to be constructed at a greater depth below, more than 3 feet below grade. The soil conditions within the proposed reserve area were different from the test holes that were performed for the septic design. The proposed trenches will be rated H20 and vented, and the SAS will be under the proposed parking or driveway area. So there's 2 variances requested, one to not construct the reserve area, and also if the reserve is going to be constructed, then they would like to install the reserve leaching greater than 3 feet below grade.
Okay.
Well, I have found in the past that to have the reserve installed at the same time has been a godsend to the condominiums, to some of the restaurants that did that, and I've never been a fan of not requiring the reserve because the disruption that will occur down the line is too overwhelming for the homeowner, and as usual, the prices go up, and it's so disruptive that it's and costly that I'm just not a fan of it. So I'm I don't have a good thing to say about this. This is for the reserve installation only. Are my comments on this right now? We're just addressing that one right now, right, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of an interesting area to run into clay. I'm kind of surprised.
That's right. And I was going to request the owner to have a perk test done in the location of the proposed facility. At that time, I happened to do that perk test, and at the time, they weren't favorable. Well, I wasn't favorable to going to the end of the back rear lot to do the perk test because of the brush and the time of year and the ticks. And so at that time, we agreed that we do it in the front. But normally when we do that, I'll say either we witness the soils at time of installation, I do another perk test at least to determine if there is indeed silt loam back there.
Right, and that's pretty common practice.
And Glenn, did it say on the plan the agent to witness soils at time of installation? Because normally I'll request the engineer to put that.
I'll take a look at it. I don't remember off the top of my head if that was on there.
Hi, this is Rich from Atlantic Design. Can I jump in for a second, I guess?
Yeah, sure, Rich, that's fine.
Yeah, I guess to answer that question, one of the notes on our drawing in terms of inspections was that the soils would be confirmed at the time of installation. And that is basically essentially what we did. And, unfortunately we found a 2 to 3 foot or even sometimes larger layer of silty clay material in both the primary and the reserve.
In that area, so you're confirmed that there is silt loam back there?
Yes, in both the primary and the reserve. So we've made some minor adjustments to the primary, and that's been, I believe, completed and installed. We had some removal and replacement back there. That's been completed. But in terms of the reserve area, I guess that's why we're here now, to hopefully minimize the cost of any removal and replacement, and perhaps minimize the cost of installing the system due to this, I guess, kind of an unforeseen circumstance in the soil conditions out there, which are causing, I guess, quite a financial hardship to the owner at this point in time. So he's at a point where he's willing to take the risk of the system not failing in the near future and being able to go in at a certain time in 20, 25, 30 years from now if it does fail, that he's willing to take that chance and do the work at that point in time, as opposed to having the expense of installing it now and having the added expense of having to remove and replace all the silt that was found in the area and replacing it with sand. It's not at this point, it's not a conventional system that's being installed. It's a remove and replace, which again can be twice as expensive as a normal reserve system. So that's kind of in a nutshell why we're here.
Yeah. So this is Jan Agerbeck. Let me know when you want me to give me my 2 cents. I'll go back on mute until then.
Sure. No, if you'd like to, please feel free.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having us tonight and allowing us to give us our side of the story. I'm Jan Agerbeck, Cape Cod Coffee. As you know, we're here about the new roasting facility down on 10 Evergreen Circle. We're really here to ask about the relief for the backup because of financial hardship. As you're probably aware, since we're doing this new format, we're all facing with what's going on in the world right now with the COVID-19. we currently are operating at 10% of normal revenue. So 90% of what we normally see for revenue right now is gone. We hope to be back to somewhat normal, whatever the new normal is, probably sometime in August. Right now we got 25 plus staff members on furlough between our restaurant in Mashpee Commons and our roasting facility on Route 130. Like Rich was just talking about, and Glenn and Ronnie was mentioning, when we started digging the fields for both the regular main and the backup field, there was clay, soil, bad soil, a bunch of different issues, which required digging deeper, more sand, more this, more that, for both areas. And with this additional cost, just digging the main field is going to burn through the whole budget for the whole system. So I get that there's benefits down the road 30 years from now when I'm 6 feet under. Maybe I'll get buried next to the leach field, 6 feet under. But that is a risk we're willing to take because the money's just not there right now based on what we just discussed. So for us, eliminating the backup field would really allow the extra expenses that we need to incur digging for the main leach field. So that will be offset. And again, we're fully aware that if the system fails in the future, if and when it fails, we're going to have to replace it. We totally get that. We cannot operate without, obviously, a functioning septic system. So I wish we had better news or better times, but I don't know if any of you have ever run your own business, but it's tough when you let that many people go on furlough and operating on that few money, and then all of a sudden get hit by a big budget increase to get this done. So again, I appreciate your consideration for our request, and you guys have always been great to work with. Ronnie and I and Glenn go way back from 5 years ago when we first bought Cape Cod Coffee, and I think we've come a long way and hope to continue that. So we would appreciate you guys looking at this with different eyes and ears than you normally would, as these are not regular and normal times. So thank you, and if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, Jan. The one thing that I would be reasonable to is that prior to I'm not quite sure at what point the restaurant would go in, but prior to the restaurant opening, that the reserve will be installed at that time. Because the flows to the restaurants and the grease, the system just cannot handle that for over a long period of time. We've seen that way too many times, and I think Glenn would back me up on that. And so I'd be willing to that with a condition that the reserve area be installed upon opening of the restaurant, the food establishment.
Well, that's all going to happen in about 6 to 7 weeks is when we're opening up that piece of it.
Who is this?
That was
This is Jan, Cape Cod Coffee.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, I thought, in your letter, didn't it say that upon opening of the pizza restaurant or your pizzeria, that, you had some comments about opening that up, and I assumed that was down the line, and right now you're focusing more on the distillery.
No, the roasting, everything is opening up in early June. We just got the pizza oven delivered this week.
Oh, okay.
So everything, well, assuming
you're not going to see the system. It's a field, and because of the grease buildup and such, you're not going to see 30 years out of that system. And I don't care if you have a fast or not, you're not going to see 30 years out of that system. And I just think it would be truly regrettable if it wasn't done at some point. Whether you agree to it in 5 years or whatever, but I think you'll truly regret it down the line because of the expense. And
Again, if everything was the way it was designed, as far as we didn't have to spend additional money on the digging and clearing and so forth, we wouldn't have this discussion because we had that money in the budget. The problem we have is that money's now gone because of the condition of the soil and the location. So it's not a resistance to want to do it. It's just I don't know where the money's going to come from.
well, the thing is you're asking for the installation below the silt loam, so there won't be any cost associated with removal of the silt loam. So I don't understand that part of it, but the strip out of the silt loam would be quite expensive, but you're not asking for that. Am I correct?
No, correct. The money we're spending on making the main leach field meet code, that additional cost to do that is all the money that was going to be spent on building and paying for the reserve backup leach field.
Because you're going to strip out the soils for the the primary?
Correct.
Yeah,
Already
you'd have to.
This is
You'd have to
Roy.
strip it out. There's no way around it.
Maybe I could add, this is Roy, and Rich, you can do better than me on this, but yes, we've submitted with the variance application a cross-section of the trenches, and these are leaching trenches, not a field, and it shows the clay layer in the reserve area that would have to be removed, and their only reason for the other alternative variance request was in the event that you did not grant relief to eliminate the reserve area, that Atlantic has come up with a scenario whereas if we drop the elevation of the field as below where it was originally designed, that we can eliminate some of the cost of the removal of the clay. Money which Jan does not have at all. So the hope and wish was that you would consider allowing us to not build the field at all, so that the savings of that would help to offset the money already spent to remove the clay that's unfortunately appeared in the primary area.
Yeah, it's a tough one
Again,
for me.
Brian, let me throw this out. I mean, I would be agreeable to that, but I still want to install at some point, whether it's 2 years or whatever. So, 2 years should be enough that we can get that installed.
Yeah, but then you're going to be tearing up the parking lot, whatever landscaping's there.
I know, I don't have that plan in front of me. Is a reserve in the parking lot?
Yes.
Yeah, it's under part of the parking lot.
Glenn, is there an alternative area for the reserve? A possible? Oh, you don't have the plan, huh?
No, I've got the plan in front of me.
Oh, okay. Do you see anything there, Glenn?
Well, with the tanks in the back, the only place to move it would be out front. And the further you go out front, the deeper you're going to get. So,
if it were done by gravity, yeah.
Yeah, if it were done by gravity, and there's no pump involved with this system right now, other than a recirculation pump. So, not really, not as far as another viable area for the reserve area.
Well, let me ask you this. Is there a grease trap involved in this plan?
Yes.
What's the size of it, Glenn?
This is Rich. It's 1,500 gallons.
After a 5,000-gallon septic tank.
Yeah. I can't, I don't have the sort of...
Would you like me to share the plan? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, I don't have the full-scale plans handy. Well,
If you'd like me to screen share it, I have it.
Yeah, 1,500 gallons. Yeah, right. Yeah, 1,500 gallon grease trap. Yep. Just took me a second to find it.
Well, Brian, what's your opinion?
so I guess I'm kind of, I'm a bit on the fence. I like to see the reserve go in at the same time. I'm just trying to think if usually when we grant a variance, we want some sort of additional protection in return. So I'm trying to think of what that could be. If there's another area on the property where if they were to, if there were space in the front where it could go, where there are more favorable soils, even if it had to be pressure dosed up there, if they were to put the pump chamber in place now, along with the piping out to the front, so that when economic conditions are a little bit more favorable, they would be able to install the field in the front section. That would be significantly less cost than trying to do the full strip out for the reserve and still have, at least the infrastructure is in place if there is an early failure. And hopefully, that installation of the reserve could take place, sooner rather than later. Because we're looking at mostly sand up in the front where the test holes were done. I'm trying to pull up the original plans for this, but.
Would you like me to share them, or?
Yes,
I can do that.
Rich again.
If you can do a screen share, that would be helpful.
I'm asking your permission if I may.
Oh, yes, absolutely. If we can technically figure out how to do that.
Were the pockets of silt loam, or was it a strip, a whole complete area that the silt loam
whole
went down?
area is contaminated.
And to what depth does it go down?
8 feet.
Yes. It really varies quite a bit, but it went down as low as it was as high as 2 feet below, and then it was as low as 8 feet below.
Really? Was a lot filled in?
Very variable. Yeah, it was incredibly variable back there, but it was a solid layer across the whole area, the primary and the reserve. Yeah.
Was a lot filled in some areas, or was that just the way that the natural occurrence?
According to the soil evaluator, he thought it was a natural occurrence.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of an odd area to end up with that type of a material. You're not you're sort of closer to the edge of the moraine, but.
Right, you don't see that very often, that it would alternate that much.
On this plan, what's the location of the test holes on this plan?
The original perk tests were done up in the front area. I'm trying to find them. Bear with me. Try to show you.
Oh, I think it was way up front, Brian. Yeah, and then we went the further we went back, the more I think we hit silt loam on another hole.
Because we not be on this plan. Which plans? Let me just bear with. Don't see them. But trying to find them.
There was one that was done up front, adjacent to the middle catch basin in the parking by the street. Just to the right of that catch basin. There was number 1, and number 3 was done over.
By the basin, the middle of the basin.
Yes, in the middle of the retention area. That's correct.
I'm trying to find. I know they show somewhere, but I don't know where.
Yeah.
Oh, here they are. See,
Yep.
TP1 here, TP3 here, TP4, and
That's 2
these are
there.
the setbacks. So where building was forced into this location. I'll go back to the plan. You may not be aware of all the permitting trajectory we had in other boards, but we were limited. We cannot build in this 50-foot buffer in the front. Naturally now if we'd known the soils we're like this is just, from the owner's point of view, the financial point of view, we'd known the soils were compromised, we would have designed the septic out here, but now these are installed, so we have setback structures.
Right.
We're really limited here. You mentioned piping to a different location. We'd be somewhat shooting blanks to hope that there might be something maybe out in here. But again, all of this is not paved, so this line could be run at any time. It's all unpaved, so it could be done. To your point, could be done. But I would be shooting blanks. And if
That's what's up
so,
there.
really, the hardship is such that if we had known that the soil was compromised, we would have changed the whole design. But now we're locked in because we had to preserve. I think the vast majority of the undisturbed had to be preserved. So we really were sort of just totally locked in where we could develop the site. Up here, these limits are now. So I guess I just would say that that's why the hardship. It's just not as if we didn't try to design ourselves into this. This is just result of this last discovery at the last minute. We're putting the field in 2 weeks ago, and so we're just asking for some relief. And the issue is to try to eliminate cost. I think I understand your point about asking for mitigation or an alternate plan, but I think good faith is important too. John is not going to, we've done many projects like this, restaurants, we've done multiple grease traps, tanks. We don't have any room even for that now, but, there's no reason why he would immediately fix this.
We always have to look at not just 30 years down the road, but 5 years down the road. I mean, Jan, I know you run a really good business in town, and you've been very successful at what you do. But if you chose to sell the business in 5 years, and now somebody else owns this, and they change the use, and suddenly we have a higher strength waste going into the system, and it fails early, then we've got a problem on our hands. So that's the thing that kind of holds me up a little bit with it, and just saying, sure, don't worry about the reserve. Is change of use can happen unexpectedly.
But if you have, this is Jan, if you have a change of use, that individual would have to go in front of you guys anyway, and couldn't you at that point say, well, if you're going to do something different than what was already done there, you have to now put in this reserve, or I don't know what the language would be, but isn't that something?
You could probably stipulate, I don't know if Jan, you'd agree, that if you were to sell it, would agree as part of this variance to install the field, the reserve, before the sale.
Yeah, or sell it knowing that the buyer has to install it before they can operate on it. I mean, that's easy to add to any language.
Yeah.
Again, it's not a lack of willingness to do this. It's just it's a money thing.
Yeah,
just don't.
I follow you. I'm not opposed to you on that piece. I'm trying to think of how we can come to some sort of a middle, some sort of a middle ground, or somewhere.
Yeah, me too.
Somewhere where we're all sort of comfortable, and I don't want to put you in a situation where you can't open your, you've invested a lot into this, and I'd hate to see you not be able to complete the project because of something like this, or run into serious trouble down the road.
How about Brian?
At the same time, we have to protect the public health, so that that has to sort of fit.
That's right. And in saying that,
the primary focus for us. So it's
what if and in saying what you said, I just had a thought. What if the system was increased enough that they could add another trench, something like that? Because I don't have the plan in front of me. Is the capacity over? Normally, it's not done that, but over what's required under Title V.
This is Rich. Based on the flows for Title V, the size of the trenches are really kind of right at that flow.
Yeah.
It was little over 1,600 gallons a day, and the trenches are sized for that.
1625 versus 1650.
Right. Have you started any of the installation yet, or did you just kind of do some additional test holes and kind of run into the problem and then go from there?
Primary is all been removed. The unacceptable soil has been removed and replaced. So we're about ready to install the trenches. And we would have to go and re-excavate down 8 feet if we were to extend them at all. We went the statutory requirement of 5 feet all around and the full depth. We had the soil evaluator watch every bit of it. So any extension of this now would be just like starting again, unfortunately, from the point of view of the client.
Yeah, okay. I was hoping that wasn't the case.
This is Rich again. One of the things I'd just like to mention on the grease trap, based on a number of seats and calculation for kitchen flow of 15 gallons of seed, the size of the grease traps comes out to be 1,000 gallons, and we have a 1,500 gallon system installed. So, we're adding 50% more to what would be required by Title V. So I think that, and the fact that what we have here isn't the strict restaurant use with a full kitchen like you would normally see, where they're cooking all different kinds of foods and different types of methods. I think it's that coupled with the oversized grease trap, I think, should alleviate some of the concerns about immediate failure, or a failure sooner than later.
Rich, can you install it? Can you install one more trench?
Well,
yeah, Ronnie. I think he was saying that they've already started to they've already stripped out the material and brought in suitable material, so they would have to really dig out a lot of suitable material.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so with the fast, you're going to get good BOD removal. What size fast unit are we talking about? It's a 0.9 point? It's not going to be a smaller one, but
it's a 9.0.
9.0.
Yeah.
So this is Jan again. So Rich brings up a good point. So the food there, it's a pizza oven. So 90% of it's going to be pizza. We do sandwiches and salads. So there's not a lot of obviously grease coming out of the kitchen. Number two, we are using paper plates. So there's no glassware and so forth. It's not like a true restaurant where you have a huge dishwasher for glasses, huge dishwasher for plates and all that stuff. This will all be paper and plastic type thing, or the way the world is going, all paper. So this is far, far away from your traditional restaurant that you would see. So the fact that we have a 50% increase in the grease trap based on what is on seating, which is based on a normal restaurant, we're probably more than double what is really being required based on the business.
Glenn, is the seating for a restaurant with regular dishware, is it 20 or 15?
It's 35 gallons a day per seat for a full-service restaurant, and then it's 20 gallons. 20 gallons a day per seat for.
And so what is the restaurant based? This restaurant based on 20?
Based on 20 with paper and plastic.
Oh, so that. With that said, Jan, that's what, if you're going to go that way, then that's the normal requirement with paper. So it does meet Title V. It's just we've run into issues, Jan, and yeah, that's what we're worried about. When once it's paved, it's done.
No, I get that. I'm just we're looking at what other towns and other stuff are doing, so we're comparing that as well. So this, again, I'm not trying to cut corners, so I'm going to spend $100,000 in 5 years fixing my septic. That's not what we're trying to do, right? So it's not like we're trying to come in here and let's see how cheap we can do this. That's not the goal.
I know.
We're just at this point in the phase of the project, and this environment we're living in, and it's not like you go back to the banks. Banks right now are not doing anything unless they're getting the money from the government on a PPP or disaster loan. They're not giving you anything. So, we're kind of back into a corner a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Glenn, could we potentially do like we do with property transfers, some sort of an enforceable order that would require the reserve be installed within 5 years or prior to transfer of the property, something like that?
And how would we keep track of that, Glenn, down the line so that it wouldn't get forgotten?
Well, with
an enforceable order would be required. It would be recorded with the deed. So whenever the property transfer occurs,
that you can definitely do that as a condition of the variance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm agreeable to that.
Because I don't want to hold him up.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a really tough situation. So ordinarily, if this was just an average, everyday kind of situation, I would say, no, sorry, you got to install the reserve. But things are kind of strange right now. So I think, if we can get something down on paper that says it should be, installed within 5 years or prior to transfer, whichever occurs first, then, I think I'd be amenable to something like that if you would be.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
I wonder if you could just consider eliminating the whatever occurs first.
Yeah, I would ask for that too. It's not going to be cheap to do in 5 years either. And trust me, the debt we're all going to be in, it'll be a while before we get back to whatever the normal is. I mean, had this happened before we started this, I would have backed out of this project. It's going to take years before we get back to normal on a business perspective. So I would be okay if we can have it, if we transfer, if we sell it, if there's a transfer in ownership, that at that point in time either before we sell it or before somebody can go in and do business there, they have to put in a reserve field. Because then that gets added to the deed, and we have to disclose it if we sell the property and the company or whatever.
Okay. What do you think of that, Ronnie?
Well, I don't know. We could move it up to 7 years. I think the economy is going to improve prior to 5 years. But you got to make a profit too, and that's a big expense. But I think at some point we've got to do something. If it doesn't transfer for 20 years, then 10 years would be a good test. We could require after 10 years nobody's going to follow up on that though. I was going to say we could have the system evaluated, but I having experienced the fact that these things get forgotten as people move on and etc. That why don't we just leave it with the sale of the property, Brian? Because I know what's going to happen. It's not going to get enforced because people aren't going to see it.
Yeah. No, you're probably right. Probably right. Yeah, I think that's the cleanest way to do it then.
If you're looking to grant the variance for the reserve area, just the basis for the granting should be due to the financial hardship. Just because I don't think the soils at this point is a reason to grant this type of variance. So just in your motion, you have to state the reason for the variance, either the granting or the denying of it. So just keep that in mind, that it's truly the COVID-19 and the times of a public health emergency and lack of income. So that really needs to be the basis for any type of variance at this point.
Yep, that makes sense to me. we want to be explicit in that. So when the next person comes along who doesn't want to do their reserve, it's not, it's not arguable. Okay. I think I'm comfortable with that, Ronnie, if you're comfortable with it.
Ronnie, you there? Hello? Ronnie, you still there?
I just had to redial in again. I was lost somehow, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that, Ronnie, you there?
Yeah, I lost you for some reason.
Yeah, something happened. I don't know what it was, but other people dropped out too.
Oh, so, Brian, did you hear anything I said?
No.
Oh, it was good too.
Well, it was a dress rehearsal then.
Oh my God. I said that I'm totally agreeable to that, as long as we do in the enforceable agreement and it's filed with the registry of deeds.
Yep.
I'm fine with that. And if it fails, then Jan's going to he's going to have the burden and expense. So it is what it is,
Yeah, I agree. It's extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, Glenn, well, this is a trench, so you're not going to have any forced mains. It's just a trench, right?
That's correct. It's a gravity system. Yep.
Yeah.
Just Ronnie.
Well, I would request that you're present at the time of the installation. I mean, they backfilled. Who did that? Glenn?
Yeah, we're out looking at the primary, but you're talking about the reserve, correct?
No. I'm talking about the primary. You check the soils and all that, right?
I've already been out there for that.
I know. I'm just saying. It was done correctly, right?
Well, I haven't seen the final trenches, but I saw the soil when it was excavated.
Okay. Only because Kate's still fairly new. Can you make sure, that either you or you both go out and make sure that everything looks good and that the holes are placed correctly and all that? You know what I mean? Are you there?
Yeah, we're listening.
Oh, I'm so afraid I'm losing you.
Right. Ronnie, if you could just redo the motion, because if you said the motion while you were cut out, we missed it.
No, I did not.
We missed it. I just wanted to add one other little piece of information to this. So we have a fast unit there with a general use approval, which would be inspected once per year. As sort of an offset, do we want to bump that up to twice a year or something like that? So at least the fast unit's getting additional maintenance, and hopefully we can keep the BOD levels low enough to keep the field from blowing out too soon.
Oh, great idea, Brian. I'm all for that. That would be a nice compromise.
Yeah.
Is Jan in?
Contract in place.
I like that.
Yeah, so you're saying you'll come out and inspect twice a year instead of once a year?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the company that does it for you would do it twice a year. And I think that way we have eyes on the system twice a year. At least the fast unit will be as tuned as it can be for treatment, and should give additional longevity to the field as much as possible.
Now, you're talking field testing, Brian?
Just maintenance. I mean, field testing. I mean, we can pull a BOD sample or something like that, or BOD TSA.
Yep. Brian, we lost you. You got to call back in. Why does this keep dropping calls?
I'm still here.
Yeah.
Check out.
Yeah, we lost Brian.
Hello?
There we go. Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, it's strange. It all of a sudden I get a bunch of static, and then I can't hear anything, and I can't talk.
All right, so you're talking 2 times a year for maintenance.
Twice a year for maintenance, and yeah, I think that gives us that additional protection.
Okay.
I'd like that needs to be in the enforceable agreement too, Glenn, if that can be done.
Yeah. No,
So add it both on the decision and the enforceable agreement.
all right.
Well, we'll do it in a vote.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. You ready to make a motion on this one, Ronnie?
I am. Can we do that both at the same time, or should we do this as separate variances, Glenn?
Well, you only have to address one variance because the other variance is kind of moot at that point.
Yeah.
If you're not going to,
No, because we're require the installation at the time of the sale of the property. That's
Right.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But-
We're not. That's,
right, but the other,
Well, okay. All right.
The other variance had to do with stripping out the silt layer and putting the field
both
lower.
variances had to do with the reserve area.
Okay, but it was requested as two.
It was requested. They could withdraw that one now if they wanted. I mean, or we can just vote on one, deny the other. It doesn't really matter.
But we're not denying it because we're still requiring it upon sale of the property. Let's do this too, Brian.
So, right. So we're approving the variance for the not installing the field with the conditions that we've discussed. But the other variance request we don't have to address because that was contingent on.
Oh, you. Okay.
Yeah, the second variance request was a backup in case we weren't amenable to not installing the field. It was going to involve additional strip out and so on and so forth.
Right, but the original variance was for below 7 feet, wasn't it?
No, the one we've been addressing was the leach field installation or not.
On the reserve.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, and then have we not done the 7-foot one? That was to go below the system for the reserve, below the 3 feet.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
Well, upon when they build out the reserve area, you want them to build it fully compliant. Do you want to allow the variance now so that it's put down at depth when they have to install it at time of sale, or do you want it fully compliant when it's installed at time of sale?
I think we leave the option open for a fully compliant system at the time of sale.
Right. If you're going to grant them that relief,
All right.
then it really should be done with the full strip out and perks soil brought in on a reserve system.
Yep.
So you want to do it as two, then you're saying, or not?
No, I think the second variance request is a moot variance because we are
Do it at
passing.
the time.
Yeah. So I don't think we even need to address that.
So he.
Yes, we can withdraw that one if you're going to grant relief on the secondary, certainly.
Yeah, that makes sense because we don't need the second one if we're gonna pass the first one to not install the leach field, then they don't need the second request.
Okay, so Jan, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you want to withdraw your request for the reserve for the system
That's correct.
formally? Okay, you want to do that formally.
Correct.
So you can say I am withdrawing.
I am withdrawing the request for the second part of
The reserve. The reserve area.
Reserve area.
Okay, let's just motion it just in case. I'll grant that withdrawal. Just do that, Brian, just in case.
Oh, sure.
So I motioned and just seconded
Just for the sake of
to
clarity.
accept the withdrawal.
Just for the sake of clarity, because he is withdrawing the second variance request for the depth of the field.
Okay,
That's
so
correct.
What you want to do? Leave it.
Yes.
You want to leave it?
So that's the
Okay.
one we're withdrawing. So I will second that motion to approve
Accept.
withdrawal. Yeah.
Okay.
So all those in
And
favor of
now-
that?
Yes, and
Aye.
I agree.
Okay. And then you want to make a motion for the other piece?
Right. We're going to motion to grant the installation of the system with a fast denitrification unit and with field testing twice a year. And upon sale of the property, the reserve area shall be installed, and the formal variance requests will be needed at that time. Shall be
Okay.
submitted at that time. How about shall be submitted at that time?
Yeah. All right. I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Can I just point out two things? Ronnie said field testing and not maintenance, and you were looking to do the enforceable agreement and file
Filed with the registry of deeds. So let me amend that motion.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, that enforceable agreement enforceable agreement be filed at the registry of deeds. That the system, the reserve area, shall be installed upon transfer of the property.
Yeah.
And
then
the testing requirements will be done twice yearly for testing and what else, Glenn? Field?
Well, you're not doing testing. Brian just wanted maintenance.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, just operation and maintenance. No testing.
For an operations and maintenance twice yearly
Right.
We have a contract
of the
now.
denitrification unit.
We have a standing contract now for once a year, so we'd have to.
Change that to
Yeah, you
twice
just
a
have
year, right, for the fast denitrification unit, per Title V requirements.
Yeah.
How's that, okay?
Okay.
Too complicated here. Okay.
All right. I will
Sorry,
second that amendment.
I'll agree. I agree.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I think we've got everything correct.
Yep.
Okay. Very good.
And that was granted based on financial hardship, right? COVID-19.
We don't have to base it. We just our decision.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Okay. So do we need to do anything else?
Well, you got to change the testing requirements. We need an agreement for that, an operations and maintenance agreement with the fast, whoever you have doing the fast.
Yep. So we'll
then-
just change it from once a year to twice a year.
And then we'll need a copy of the enforceable agreement. Now, we have one made up at work, so you need to fill that out and file it with the registry of deeds.
Something I fill
we
out
have a
with just
draft.
Can that just be recorded as your variance? Or is there some special form?
Right, Glenn's got an enforceable agreement, draft copy.
Yeah.
Okay, you can get it from him. Then you can fill it out, your attorney, whoever, and somebody's going to file it with the registry of deeds, and a copy needs to be submitted to the Board of Health.
Fine.
Glenn, do you mind emailing me all this stuff to make sure we don't
Yep.
do something correctly?
Yeah,
Please?
the enforceable agreement's going to need to be altered a bit because right now it's written for residential properties, but
Okay. Yeah.
but I'm going to write up the board's decision letter also, so you'll have everything to record at the registry.
Okay. Thank you.
And that needs to be done prior to issuance of the certificate of compliance. We need that enforceable agreement prior to that.
Well,
Okay.
we got enough time to do that.
Very good.
Okay.
Looking
Thanks,
forward to
everybody.
having coming and seeing the place when it's done, and hopefully, enjoy a cup of coffee there sometime.
Yeah, well, we look forward to opening this place up and get back to whatever the new normal is.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Stay
good luck.
safe. Thanks again.
Take care.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So Glenn, we're not on TV at all, just to
No.
make sure the tech never showed up.
Yeah, tech never showed.
Okay.
Did you try to get hold of Debbie?
All right.
No.
Then
Call somebody. I didn't know if you did.
No.
what I'm thinking is we'll do the COVID. We'll do the refuse hauler reg, and then the COVID update, and then the emergency order. I think that's probably the most logical order to do these in.
Whatever you want.
Okay. All right. So let's do a review of the amendments for the refuse hauler regulation.
Okay. That's done. That's done. Put this away. This.
Oh, I have a question on that, Glenn. On the penalties,
Yeah.
you say a bond shall be submitted. Why don't you put a bond and or I know with the transfer station there was a wording for that, bond and like a monetary amount. You shouldn't restrict it to a bond because there may be other ways that they'll be able to submit something that's acceptable to the board.
Okay.
And I think, again, if you go back to the old Board of Health refuse regulation,
Yeah, we did. We looked at that.
well, I think on it doesn't say bond back then because I remember the board agreeing at one point that somebody wanted to submit a bond and they actually voted on whether or not to accept the bond. So
Yeah.
if somebody wants to submit money, you might want to
Yeah.
give that let that be an option also.
Okay.
But other than that, it's well written. Nice job.
Okay. Well, thank you, Christine.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did on this, so I just want to go back. At the last meeting, the board did instruct me to prepare a draft to require the bond in the amount of $25,000 and to include inspection requirement because the inspection requirement wasn't actually written into the previous regulation. So you also asked me to talk to council regarding the bond requirement, if that could be borne by just refuse haulers located in Mashpee, or if it had to apply to other Mashpee licensed haulers. And I have not had a chance to talk to council about that. So
Okay.
if I could, well, now that there's a draft that's been drawn up here, I think it's better to have that to send to council anyway, so that he's got something to look at. So
Yeah.
if you want to if you're good with the wording, or if you need me to change anything, I will certainly do that, and then I can send a request up to through the town manager's office to have council comment on that one thing. But we can do it as part of the review of the regulation.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. What do you think, Ronnie?
Yeah. Yep, I think that's fine.
Okay.
I just in number 6, the wordings at the end of number 6 says, as far as the inspections, upon which equipment vehicles may be kept or business conducted relating to a current or previously issued refuse hauler's license. I'm not sure we can do it for a previously issued license. I don't know what jurisdiction we would have over somebody that is no longer under our permit. So,
I agree.
Yeah.
So let me just correct that. I saw that tonight. I had read it before, but it just kind of kicked in before I read it. I mean, before I came to the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he would have seen that too, I think.
Yeah.
And then you'll add the other thing about the monetary amount, right?
Yep. Yeah, we'll go back and look at that. But I know that we did review that. And I know Christine and I talked about it as far as a different type of bonds. There's an insurance bond and
that's right.
a performance bond.
Yeah.
But they, I think what we came up with is that they're all essentially a surety bond, and that's, I mean, Christine has been doing insurance for the town for, I don't know, 13 years now, so she's pretty well versed in the insurance side of it, and that's what she said. So, but I'll go back and I'll look into if somebody wants to pay cash, we will certainly hold that in an account like we did before for the haulers. So we have to,
I think it needs to be in it, stated in it.
Right, we have to give them that option.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's easy. That's an easy fix. All right.
Okay. One comment on number 7, between the hours of 7 and 10. I think some of our haulers might need a reminder that 7 a.m. is the start time. I know my hauler routinely gets here before 7. I can never catch him to go out and tell him not to do that. But they might need a reminder of the start time because they're maybe getting a little early start.
Yep, no, that's fine because I've had to do that for other commercial haulers, especially with the condominiums where they go too early to the condominiums. We end up hearing about it.
Yep. Okay, sounds good to me.
All right, I will put that forth to council.
Okie dokie.
Okay, thanks, Glenn.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Where are we at? So, why don't we take up then the COVID-19 update?
Okay. Well, did this get sent to you? I'm just, as far as the bullet points.
I was just going to look for it, actually.
Yeah, me too.
I see the emergency orders. No. Yeah, I don't see the bullet points here like usual. I see your comments for Cape Cod Coffee. Yeah, it's not there.
Okay.
But that's fine.
Well, we continued updating, and Kate prepared this by going through our emails, but we continued updating the public safety answering point and the town manager of new cases. We've referred public inquiries for case numbers to the data put out by the Department of Public Health in order to maintain consistency in reporting. That essentially means we're not participating in the heat map, and I am still getting requests on why we're not doing that, but we are steering people towards the state website, which I think is the more consistent information anyways. We communicated with Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce regarding reopening protocols for businesses, followed up on a complaint made to the Department of Labor and Standards regarding a business in Mashpee. We stayed up to date with updates from the COVID-19 Command Center and daily briefings from Governor Baker. We met with the DPW and the town manager to discuss implementation of COVID-19 prevention strategies in town buildings for reopening. Maintained the Mashpee COVID-19 webpage for up-to-date information. perform pre-operation inspections for the raw bar for takeout only, and Yummy Sushi and Roach Brothers inquired with Region 5 HMCC about the turnaround time for large orders of mass. The response was that it would be unlikely that a large order would be filled, and I did that basically if we do the mask requirement for the public, then I thought we would have to provide them. So I inquired at the state on the supply chain, and it would take weeks to get, and the orders would be small. I had asked to get 4,000 to 5,000 masks, and they said it would just take weeks, if not months, to get that many. So that's why I did that. We participated in a webinar about the rollout of the Community Tracing Collaborative, communicated with Council on Aging regarding face covering sanitization, discussed a face covering requirement with the town manager and chair of the Board of Health, and drafted an order for approval. Communicated with several food establishments about masks, advised a long-term care facility about family members dropping off food for residents, participated in weekly conference calls with the Cape Cod Health Agents Coalition and DPH, responded to calls from community members about mask requirements, investigated complaints of short-term rentals violating the non-essential business order, responded to 2 inquiries from seasonal campgrounds regarding planning and opening, communicated with...
Can I stop you and ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Well, with the camps, what's the protocol for that? Is there one?
Recreational camps or the campgrounds?
Both. Not the campgrounds, the recreational camps.
Recreational camps, there's no guidance yet. They're still under restriction because of the social distancing. So there's no other, they haven't been given the go-ahead to open up yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Communicated with superintendent regarding plans for senior prom and graduation. Communicated with new boating guidelines for the harbor master. And discussed
what's happening with that?
Well, the boat ramps right now are not closed, and the only people who can use to go boating now are people who are in the same family, and if there is a commercial charter. Is that correct?
There's no charter or rentals or anything like that.
Okay, no charters at that point.
Okay, and just one other thing to go back to the rentals. What's going on with that?
Well, we had a property, 43 Little Neck Lane, that ended up having some folks from New York stay there. So I'm in the process of looking and we did go to the property and talk to the occupant, and found out that the owner did rent it to them after the deadline for the short-term rentals. So I'm looking in to see what the the fine structure will be on that.
And how is that going to be handled in relationship to the COVID-19?
Well, it's actually enforcement through the the governor's declaration of public health emergency. So it falls on the Board of Health, and the enforcement is $300, and it says $300 per offense. And I just need to clarify if that is a per day per offense or a single $300 offense for the 2-week rental. It wouldn't make much sense if it was just $300 for somebody who's probably paying $3,000 a week. So I just need to see if it's going to be able to issue the fine on a daily basis. But
so I missed the governor's declaration on rentals, his decision on that,
Yes.
And so what was that? Was that prohibited?
Yes.
Okay. I did not know that.
If somebody was renting a short-term rental prior to March 31st, they could continue renting until the end of the rental period. But if there was any rentals that were issued after March 31st, and the only allowance for the short-term rentals is if you were renting to somebody that was either quarantining, isolating, or were in support of the COVID-19 response. All other rentals beyond issuing a rental to those folks, then it would be considered a violation of the governor's order.
That's just for
Okay.
Massachusetts residents.
Sorry?
Thank you.
For Massachusetts residents.
Yes, just for Massachusetts residents only. And so this was kind of easy when the folks said that they were from Brooklyn, and they had license plates from New York. So it was relatively easy to confirm that it was a rental that was out of compliance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a couple more. Actually, one more. We discussed the first Mashpee death from COVID-19 with the VNA and the town manager.
Okay. Could you cover a little bit the details for the graduation, because I know that's moving forward, and any issues related to the prom as well?
Well, when I spoke to the superintendent, she had asked me to comment on graduation, as far as the timing of it and what kind of conditions a graduation could be in. And so I thought about it and then talked to her, and in the conversation she said, "Oh, well, the prom is scheduled for June 29th." And at that point I didn't really think anything about that, because I was pretty much geared up to talk about graduation. So what I told her about the graduation is that I thought that the graduation should be outside, that it should not be inside, and that they had to have the kids social distance to place the seating 6 feet apart, and that there would probably just be the students there, and then have a stage to walk across, and they could have their speakers still do their speaking, and they could pick up their diplomas as they walked by, and the diploma would be left for them at the head table. So I think, and I told them that the faculty and parents probably would not be able to be there.
But that's in June, though, right?
No, they pushed it off till mid-July.
Oh, so things may change by then.
The 25th,
Hopefully.
July 25th.
Yeah. Well, we're still going to be in a social distancing scenario regardless, but I mean, that's going to last through the summer, into the fall.
I agree.
We're going to be in that situation for a while.
But the example that I thought of, and the superintendent had seen the same thing, was the Air Force Academy. The Air Force Academy had done that, and I thought it was a pretty slick operation.
Yeah, I think it's a good compromise. I'd like to see, you'd like the kids to be able to celebrate their accomplishment, but do it safely. So I think it sounds like they've, you guys have put together a pretty good plan for protecting everyone.
That way they can still read the awards, they can still read the scholarships, and have their other general speakers at the commencement, and still be able to walk across the stage and get their diploma, and they just won't have all the fanfare of having the big crowd there. That's all, but at least they'll be able to do it.
Right. I would assume that they'll probably do it on Mashpee TV or something like that, so folks could watch from home. So that's good.
The thing with the prom too is I got back to the superintendent, and I think I copied you, Brian, on that too. Is that I think that they just need to push that off until the fall. That's what the other towns are doing, because I just don't see that happening in the traditional sense where the kids are going to be able to have a band and dance and do all the normal stuff at the prom with the social distancing requirement going through the summer.
Yeah. I mean, until we have a vaccine, I think this is probably going to be the normal, unfortunately.
I agree.
I can't see prom. I don't see any way that could happen until we are a ways over the hump here, and that's going to be a while. So.
Right.
Unfortunate, but strange times. Okay, Ronnie, did you have any other questions on the update?
No.
Okay.
No, I did not.
Okay. That's good. That's good. Okay. Do we want to move on to the mask discussion then?
Sure.
So I had received communication from the chair of the Board of Selectmen, which contained regulation from the town of Westport where they had required masks when you're in public, period, for everyone. So I put this on the agenda this evening for discussion and, to whatever degree we decide to require masks, if we do, to see, kind of what the board thought of doing something like this. I know Glenn can obviously fill in the details here, but there have been some towns on the Cape that have adopted regulations to this effect as well. So, Glenn, if you could give us kind of the detail on what you put together for this.
Okay. Well, we put together two options. One is for essential businesses, and then the other is for essential businesses and the public. So we provided lots of different options as far as what some of the other towns are doing, just to give you an idea of things that you can pick and choose as a board that you think would be applicable.
Oh, am I cutting out?
No, you're still there.
Okay.
Ronnie, you still there?
Yes.
Okay. So if you want to go through each one, we can do that. I do have some other comments too, but if you've read them and have any comments, why don't you go ahead and start, rather than rereading this.
Sure. Oh, go ahead.
Glenn, did you speak with the police chief as to how the enforcement would go?
I did.
And what was his response?
He said that he would prefer to have a discussion with us and see the wording, and he actually said rather than doing a regulation or an order, to do an advisory. If the board isn't looking for that, then what I told the police chief was that the board would hold off including the PD in the enforcement part of it until they get a chance to review and comment on it. So if you are going to do a regulation or an order tonight, because we put this together kind of in a quick fashion and did not get a chance to submit this out to the other departments, that they just requested that they have a chance to review it prior to be included in it.
Yeah, I think that piece, I think, is more prescient if we look at requiring for, everyone in public. I think if we just want to look at, the essential business sort of employees, all the grocery store staff, the restaurant staff, which I personally think we should really highly consider that requirement at a minimum. I think, that's enforceable just by us. I don't think we necessarily need the police department involved in that piece. The other, if we're requiring the whole public, that's obviously much more difficult to enforce. I know.
Right.
I know in the town of in Falmouth, they passed that regulation a couple nights ago, sort of with the the understanding that enforcement was going to be incredibly difficult, and I think that's probably been sort of how it's been looked at. I know Provincetown has adopted a similar, if you're in public sort of order. I think there specifically states unless you're in your house or in your car, you have to have a mask on or a face covering of some kind. So,
well, not only that, Brian, but people don't have access to masks, and so you can't require people to wear it when they don't have a mask and cannot get one. It's not available to them.
Right.
So I'm with you, and I'd like to rule that out because it's impractical.
I agree. I think at this point, it's a little bit too much. I think for me, our grocery store staff, restaurant staff, basically anybody who's open and has a business right now should have them on, because it's much more difficult to maintain any sort of distance in those situations. I was in Stop and Shop probably 2 hours ago, and I would say 90% of the public who were there were wearing masks anyway. So we've had, I think, pretty good, voluntary compliance with this, mask wearing suggestion regardless. So I don't know that an order is really going to gain us a whole lot other than maybe some grief in the enforcement aspect of things. But yeah, there are a couple of places that are doing takeout right now that I've personally been to that, the staff aren't wearing anything in the back, and, there's no way they can maintain 6 feet of separation back there, and they're next to each other for hours on end. I just think we need to address that situation, because it's not just them that puts at risk. It's if they contract it, then it's very easy for them to spread it to the public.
Okay.
So, and I think face covering. So, I've also seen plastic face shields in use. I don't really consider that a face covering myself. What do you guys kind of think of that? I've seen them in Stop and Shop on a few staff members. I don't think that's an adequate face covering myself.
Which one? What was it again? Or what?
They're like plastic face shields. It's like a sheet of plastic. I don't think that's adequate for respiratory protection.
I agree. I think they need both if they're going to use that.
Yeah. It's got to be a mask or some sort of a face covering, a bandana. Anything would be better than that. But I don't think.
Well,
I don't think those.
Do you think that the shielding that they've put up, the plexiglass shielding at the registers and around the customer service centers, and I know that I saw one at a convenience store where they're basically behind a temporary piece of plastic.
Yeah, I think those are great. I think they should still be wearing a mask, though.
Okay.
Yeah. I think some people need a little bit of training on how to wear a mask, because I've seen a lot of noses sticking out above the mask too. So I know we can't really address that particular issue, but people aren't necessarily being careful. I know they're not comfortable when you're wearing them all day, but I think.
Well, I was going to suggest we require masks for food service employees, they'd have to do retail too, but I was thinking more in food preparation that we require that, but the retail should have it too. But then we have to require everybody. So
Well, if we do the essential services that we permit, we're going to catch all that.
Yeah.
And that way we have jurisdiction over that, and we don't need to involve with the police as far as that kind of enforcement, because we have jurisdiction both on their permit, and so that is typically how we've operated in the past. Is as long as we permit them and have the ability to call them in for suspension, revocation, or otherwise, then that has been always the way for our enforcement.
Right.
Okay.
So we have a fee structure, obviously. So this would be against any person who violates this order, subject to a penalty of not less than 20, not more than 50 each day. Yeah. So essentially, somebody could receive a ticket for not wearing one. So one question I have, and this is a question that I had to one of the Board of Health members in Falmouth, is if we specifically define who wears them as those being on the essential business list, does that then exclude, once the essential business orders have been lifted, does that then exclude the other businesses from having to wear them if we wish them to continue wearing them? Like, do we, and what is our sort of end date? Do we define an end date? Do we kind of leave it open?
It's based on the social distancing measures.
Yeah, I think it's based on the social distancing. So,
Right.
Which I think would really be the end of the declaration of the emergency. So, I think most of these other towns are written basically until further notice, or a judgment that the public health emergency no longer exists.
Right. Okay. I like that piece. So then the essential business piece, do we want to specifically include that, or do we just say all businesses? So that when he does, on May 18th, when we go back to sort of business as usual and the other businesses start to reopen, this would not necessarily require them to wear them. And do we want to? So any brick and mortar place, the clothing stores that are going to reopen, all the little shops, should those staff be required to wear a mask as well?
Well, I guess it comes down to whether the way that the reopening is worded is, if they're just allowing reopening but the public health emergency is still in place, then the requirement would still be in place.
Right. But they wouldn't be defined as essential businesses, I guess is what I'm getting at. Because in the second paragraph it says all employees of all essential businesses as defined. So when we're no longer talking about essential businesses, do we want to just make that all businesses? Or is that, you know what I mean? Because at some point Governor Baker's going to say, okay, clothing stores can reopen. If we word it this way, then they're not an essential business, so then are they excluded from, see what I'm trying to get at?
Well, yeah, it also, I guess I was thinking that if you were going to do the essential businesses, it was still going to be limited to the essential businesses that we permit. If you want to call it all essential businesses, then we'd have, that would be true.
Right. What do you think of that, Ronnie?
I'm quite torn about the essential businesses and non-essential businesses. The access that those folks would have. Again, I go back to the face masks. If they order them, would they be able to get them? Because they're not essential services. Right now, I think it's Glenn said, even the state can't provide us with a large amount of them. They'd have to have quite a few each business to be able to have their employees wear them. And I don't know if are we being unreasonable?
Well, we're defining it as a face covering, which could be a fabric mask, a scarf, or bandana.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be like an N95 mask or even a dust mask. It could just be a scarf that you have.
Well, I guess we'd have to specify that, right?
It does.
Yeah, it's in here.
It does.
Yeah. As defined in the executive order, shall wear a face covering such as a fabric mask, scarf, or bandana over his, her nose and mouth while interacting with the public and within 6 feet of a coworker. So I don't think we're saying you have to wear a specific type of mask. It's just some sort of a face covering, so that if you're sick and you're coughing, at least you're restricting some of that virus transfer. Not going to stop all of it, but at least it's some of it.
Well, the store owner would still have to. I mean, what if the folks say, "I don't have anything that I can put on my face"?
Yeah.
Where are they going to get that from?
Something. I mean, they have to provide gloves. Gloves are in short supply too, so
gloves can be had. I saw them in some various stores. You can get them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, I think they were nitrile or something like that. They weren't, vinyl, which can be really hard on some people's skin, but they are available, and not just one. You can get packages of them. I'm not too concerned about that as much as I am about the face mask and how they're going to get them. That's been my concern at the beginning. And I think if we go beyond the essential services, I think we might get into some flack from folks because they're going to say, "I can't find them, you find them," kind of thing.
True.
I'm being the devil's advocate here,
I understand that.
That's why I was totally for it with the essential services, because even if that person in their car doesn't have a mask, the employee is protected for the most part, because if that's true about the 15 minutes and that they're only spending moments with them, maybe a minute at the most as they pay and they hand them their order, so maybe a couple minutes. So as long as the employee's covered, and if there are folks, I saw them too today, that are not wearing anything, and so
yeah.
I'm as long as that employee is covered, and that would be the essential services.
Right. Well, essential services is a pretty broad category. It's not just food service and grocery stores. It's,
I'm just worried they can't get masks on them.
True, but they could always demonstrate that hardship. I don't know. We hemmed and hawed over, requiring a leach field of, and I guess a mask or a bandana or something. It's not that much to ask. You can make them out of a T-shirt. It's not like. It's not too crazy. I personally don't think it's too crazy, but.
No.
Well, no. Okay, let's go back to the employee that's working for a clothing store.
Yep.
And the owner says to you, calls the board of health, "I can't find them. I can't get masks. I don't have access to them because I'm not an essential business."
Well, not essential.
Okay, so now their client going to wear a T-shirt. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm
I don't know.
just throwing.
I don't know if even essential services can get them. If
Well,
we're going to look at it,
I haven't seen any restaurant employees that haven't have a mask on of some sort. You know, but yeah.
Yeah.
Because don't forget, we're covering both here. We're doing. I'm thinking
Yeah.
of protecting the employee, because if Joe, regular person, is not going to wear them, and you take the consequences, and it's not. But for you to suscept somebody else to that is wrong. So therefore, if we can at least get the employee for the essential service, just for now, until they lax it, you know what I mean?
Right.
And the 6-foot distance comes. I just want to get this thing on the books so that we can at least do something. And I'd like to at least require the essential services people.
Okay. All right. And then if the state doesn't take action on the 18th, before the 18th, to address the others, then maybe we can discuss the others at that point.
Perfect. Yep. I'm willing.
Okay.
So let's adopt that.
Also change
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I think I was about to say the same thing. So go ahead.
Okay, so you go right ahead.
Oh, no. I was going to say I think it's we've got to do something with this. So I think we move this forward with the language that we have here. I think this covers everything.
Okay. Hey, Brian, let me. Kate just brought up a point where you're kind of worried about the definition of the essential services after some of the restrictions have been listed. You could use the wording, all businesses allowed to operate from brick and mortar facilities versus the essential services. Because that's how many of the guidelines right now are written within the governor's orders are based upon businesses that operate from a brick and mortar facility.
Yeah.
But then you got to put a definition for brick and mortar, Glenn. People aren't going to know that.
Well, I mean, essential businesses is defined in a different location as well. So I think, or businesses that are allowed to operate per the governor's orders, I think makes sense too, because then I could see them doing a phased approach to reopening where they're not going to just let everything reopen, at one time. That they're going to let certain things kind of go to start with.
We got to remember too, the general term essential services covers a tremendous amount, from landscapers to department stores, basically.
Yeah, the construction industry. Yeah.
So I think those folks, for the most part, are pretty much practicing that. I was more on the food service person who goes to that car and spends any time whatsoever with that patron.
I was just thinking food. The landscapers and the contractors, I think, are the worst offenders of not wearing them. Because whenever I'm in the store, it's always them who aren't wearing them. I mean, I saw a huge group of landscapers working today. None of them were wearing a mask, and they were standing, inches from each other, operating equipment without half of the PPE they should have had.
Good point.
I think
that's a good point.
If you go to a store, it's always somebody wearing Joe Blow's landscaping or contracting company. They're the ones who aren't really taking this seriously, it seems like. So
right. Well, let me bring up one point too. I'm just looking at the regulation for the essential services. Is that it says that you have to wear the mask, scarf, or bandana if you're interacting with the public and within 6 feet of a coworker. So certainly the construction guys aren't interacting with the public and maybe very rarely within 6 feet. The landscapers tend to work together. but that goes back to whether you just want to make this for essential services that the Board of Health permits, or if you want to do all the essential services.
I think we do all essential services. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Landscapers, when they hop in their truck, they all ride in the same truck. You know, they should have a mask on when they all hop in the same truck together. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
and with the condoms,
it's true.
You know,
we've warned them about that too.
I just think I think they don't think about it as much. Those two groups in particular, I worry a bit about, because it seems like they're the least likely to take those precautions. I know it's their choice at this point, but when I've seen them in public, yeah.
All right, so you're leaning on doing all of the essential services then. How about the public going into essential service businesses?
I don't think I'm ready to do all the public yet.
Okay.
There's just too many. It's too big of an enforcement problem. And you guys are going to get like 100 calls.
Right. No. I understand.
Yeah. You can't follow up on that. Well, I'm just providing my justification. You know, it's just. Yeah, I think it would be excessively burdensome, and I don't see any way it could be effectively enforced.
I agree.
Right.
We're not 100%.
Okay. Nope. I'm just crossing stuff off as I go through this. That's all. Yep. So that it looks like you're sticking pretty close to the regulation or the order that was written up for essential business employees.
Yes.
For that version.
Yeah, I think we get that group with this, and if we need to, expand that, we can look at expanding it at some point. But I think at this point, we've at least got to get these groups sort of buttoned up.
Okay. And right now, if you approve this tonight, we're going to take out the Mashpee police officers out of the enforcement until we get the chief on board with that. So it's going to fall on us.
Right. Okay. I mean, if he's not willing to help enforce for now, then that's
Well, if the board wants to take it and to the next step to do the public, then I think we would have to have some help with the PD, and we'd certainly sit down with them on the wording on how to include them.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. Okay, so now a motion to adopt an emergency order requiring all essential services listed by the Governor, Charlie Baker, that masks shall be worn.
Face coverings. I would amend that to face coverings, and not necessarily just masks.
Yeah. Can I just can I throw Ronnie? Hold on one sec. Can I just throw in? Do you want to include any exceptions in there for medical reasons, or do you want us to determine that in the field? Because someone's going to say that they can't wear them for some medical reason, and we're going to hear every excuse in the book, I'm sure, for not wearing them. But I don't have.
I think maybe let's handle those case by case. I mean, they could. I don't want to. I don't know. I kind of feel like if you put like a medical exemption in there, then it's so easy just to say I kind of have a medical exemption. I don't know. That's tough.
But
well, until that happens, maybe we should just adopt it, and like you said, we can take the issues up as they come.
Yeah.
Or we could have the health agent's discretion
Yeah,
with
I mean, you're going
proof.
to, yeah, there's going to be discretion involved with this anyway, so.
And what are we going to do? Call a meeting every time someone says they can't wear one? You know?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to bring it up.
Yeah, yeah. No, I see where you're going with it.
I just want to bring up one other thing that we found on this one after we typed this up is that first sentence, the public health emergency was on March 10th, not March 20th. So I just wanted to correct that. And we also had building inspectors in the enforcement.
Yep.
I don't know if the building inspectors will be taking part of that. They can certainly let us know. It's not like they have to be put down as one of the enforcing agents.
Right.
No, I would leave that up to the discretion of the health agent. They can come to you, Glenn.
Could we word that as Mashpee Board of Health officials, their agents, or other designees, and then if the police department wants to become a designee, they can participate that way, and we don't have to amend the reg, or amend the order. Do you think that works?
Glenn?
Say that one more time.
So for the paragraph where it's who's enforcing, what if it says this order shall be enforced by the Mashpee Board of Health officials or their agents or other designee, and then the designee could be when the police department is comfortable with assisting, we could just designate them as a designee in enforcement. That way we don't have to come back and amend the order as part of a public meeting.
Okay, sure. Yep.
That way, if they decide tomorrow that they're fine doing it, we don't have to wait until our next meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Should we clarify that final vote, or?
I've got it written down. I'm good. If you're ready to go, I think we've corrected this where we need to have it.
Okay.
Okay,
I mean,
so,
the motion.
Brian, you want to?
The motion could just be approve as presented and amended.
Okay.
I think that covers the language we've been giving and also our discussions. That should cover us, I think, rather than specifying them one by one in a motion.
Do you want me to second that, or do you have to do that?
Well,
you amended it, so I'll
you would have to make that motion, Mike.
I second that amendment.
So you have to make the actual motion. I can't make the motion as chair.
The amendment?
No, there was no.
Oh, you want me to make the amendment? I'll make the amendment.
I was just suggesting that your motion could be to approve the order as presented with the amendments as discussed. Was just my suggestion for your motion. That's all.
Okay, I'm motion to approve the regulation as amended per the discussion.
Yeah, I think that works. I will second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just to clarify that was the emergency order under the Declaration of Public Health Emergency Mass requirement for all essential business employees.
That's correct.
Okay, because I gave you two versions and we didn't really read.
Adopted May 10th. March 10th, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Are you all set with that, Glenn? We can do it again if you need be.
No, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
dokey. I think we only have one thing left, which unfortunately is Mallory's resignation from the board. So I'm sad to hear that she's going to be leaving us. I understand her reasons for doing it, but I'm sure she isn't able to listen, but I've enjoyed my time on the board with Mallory and wish her the best.
Right.
I do too. Well, it was very short, but we'll miss you, Mallory. Take care of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Ronnie, would you like a motion to accept that?
We accept Mallory Langer's resignation from the Board of Health.
I will second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have nothing further.
Okay. Have we, go ahead just real quick, have we received any letters of interest or anything yet for her replacement, or is
No.
that, I've kind of poked around a little bit with folks I know with, to see if anybody had any interest. I didn't know if anybody had submitted anything yet.
No. We heard from one person, but they have not submitted papers to my knowledge.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Okay. I guess I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
And motion adjourned at 8:01.
I will second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Good night, guys. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Take care.
Thanks, Brian. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
There we go.
You have a recording that needs to be converted before viewing. Okay.
There it goes.
I was going to say, it didn't have a start button. It just has a stop button. So, how do we do? We do all right?
For just in general?